Today, we're going to talk about Ignite UI for Angular, some of the tools that'll help you get started. I have 2 slides today. We're going to spend the whole time just showing stuff. So what I want to do is just give the title of the presentation here and then introduce myself and Luke. So my name is Jason. I am the Senior VP of Developer Tools at Infragistics. I am based in the US. We're doing webinars every 2 weeks now in your region. So we hope you come back. Every topic will be a little bit different based on different technology. Today happens to be Angular. Last webinar was on our app builder product. You're going to see a little bit of that today as well. Next time, we're going to do Blazor, I think, and we're just going to keep showing everyone what we have to offer and how to use it. These are technical webinars, very little marketing stuff. But if you want to get more information, Luke is based in New Zealand. He's our regional manager for Australasia, and you can see his email there. And he's the one also, you'll get his email when we send out the reminders, when we follow up with the slide decks and the recording. So this webinar will be recorded. And in fact, you know what I didn't do? I didn't share my screen, which is what Jesse always says. Did you test share your screen? I'm sorry about that. So I think Luke, you can see my screen now, right?
Yes, we can.
Okay, sorry about that. So there's Luke's email and in my email as well. So with that, what we're going to do is kick this off and get started. There's 3 things I'm going to show you tonight in terms of how to use our Angular product. But I'm going to show you a few other useful pieces of information as well. So let me get out of that slide deck. The first thing that I want to do is, and I'm going to paste this URL into the chat. If you do have questions, use the chat or use the Q&A box. So in the chat here, I'm going to send this to everyone. And this is a link to a YouTube channel, the Infragistics YouTube channel, that has our Angular or some newer Angular how-to videos. There's stuff that goes back kind of a while, but these are ones I've just done in like the last couple weeks, and we're just going to keep churning them out. So if you're wondering how to use certain aspects of the product, take a look at these videos. The other thing that I want to show you is, actually, it looks like I closed it. Let me reopen this. We have a Discord channel, and on the Discord channel, we have a bunch of different places where you can go and you can ask questions, get help, get the latest information and things like that. So I think, let me see here, invite people, copy link. So I'm going to copy this link. I'm going to paste it into the chat as well. So you can sign up to that Discord channel. I think that link will do it. But you see, you have everything here. So the app builder one's pretty active, Angular 1, Blazor. So we're just continuing to push stuff out in this way. And then the other thing that you should be aware of is the Ignite UI homepage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump over to infragistics.com. I'm going to click design and development, and we've got the Ignite UI homepage. And this homepage covers all of the different products that we have, like Angular, Blazor, .NET Core, jQuery, React, etc. What you care about for this webinar is Angular. So the Angular product has its own page, and we just talk about all the various features of the Angular product. And I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom here, because what I want to do is show you all of the UI controls we have. So we have the most UI controls that you would need to build any type of line of business app. We've got the fastest grid on the market, hands down. So if you're looking for high performance data grid, Infragistics has that with our Ignite UI for Angular data grid, but we also have tree grids. We just shipped a pivot grid. We have spreadsheet grids. We run the gamut on grids. So any type of UI that you want to build. And then, of course, all of these other controls that will help you deliver experiences. Now, if I just click on one of these guys, like the data grid, then we jump into the sample browser. So from here, you can see all the samples and then all of the components. And the way this works and the way we've done this is pretty cool. The samples and docs are the same thing. So you can see that you've got samples running, and then there's some documentation on how to actually use it and implement it. And then you continue to use it. So if you want to learn about a specific grid feature, like for example, the master detail capability of the grid, I can do like master detail experiences like this. How the heck do I do that? Well, right here, super easy to do it. You just copy a little code, paste it in your own app. But I'm going to show you how to automate all this tonight. The other thing that we've done here is every sample has either a Stack Blitz or a Code Sandbox button. So if I click Stack Blitz, this gives you the running app. So you can see here, I've got the app with the master detail grid. Here's all the HTML. Here's all the TypeScript, all the SCSS, everything that goes into this grid. It'll show up here eventually in the Stack Blitz. But the point is, let's say you really want this one sample and you want to do something with it, open it up in Stack Blitz, click the download project button, and boom, you've got that button, or you've got that zip file with that project. And then if you go and open that up, let me just click extract all, and we'll open this up and I'll slide this over. This is the project. I can open it with Visual Studio Code, which I'll stick over here. I can do a new terminal, and then all I would do here is just npm install, and then blah, 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 npm start, and then there's my sample, and I can look at all the source code just like I would online. So everything that we're doing has links over to Stack Blitz. Stack Blitz is a little slow. It's running, you know, all this stuff in the background. So anyway, we won't wait for that to happen in build. We'll have enough of that tonight. So let's go ahead and get started. So the three things that I'm going to show you tonight are the Ignite UI CLI, how to build an app with the Ignite UI CLI, how to build an app with just the Angular CLI plus the Ignite UI Angular schematics, and then how to do the same thing with the app builder. So there's three ways you can approach this. They're all perfectly valid. They all work really well. It's just really up to you what you want to do with your application. So you can see here, this actually finally came up. Looks pretty cool. All right, so let me close this out. Everything I'm going to show you tonight, you can find in the docs. So the very first help topic is Angular schematics and the Ignite UI CLI. So I'm going to be referring to this throughout my my demo tonight. And in fact, you can see I just copied this line because I'm going to install this in 1 second. So the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to open up a command prompt. Things keep opening up over on my second monitor, so I'm going to be sliding them over. Sorry about that. So here we're at C users JSON. Let's change to C:\dev, which is my dev folder. Now I'm going to use the Angular CLI, which is the ng command to create a new project. So I'm going to do ng new, and we're going to call this webinar demo 1. So what this is going to do is, using the Angular CLI, it will create the base project. So it's going off to npm and getting all this good stuff. If you're not familiar with what npm is, I'm assuming most of you folks are. I think I might have had this up here. Let's see. Yep, npm. So npmjs.com, it's a repository where your packages or vendors packages live, and you install things from here. So for example, Ignite UI Angular templates. This is something we're going to use tonight. And what you can see is this is where you would install it. You could click here, click copy, and those templates would get installed on your local machine via npm. I'm going to show you how all this works. So our application is created. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into that folder. So let's go to webinar demo one. So here we are. This is the application that we just created. Now what I want to do is I want to install the Ignite UI for Angular schematics. So you can see here, getting started, this is the command we want to run. npm install globally at Ignite UI Angular schematics. And what that's going to do is it's going to install the ability for us to use these schematics in our application. So I'm just going to paste that in, and it's going to install this. Now, once this is done, Angular schematics are sort of activated in this project. Now we have to actually install Ignite UI for Angular. So we're going to do an ng add. So we want to add this to the application. We want to add a package. This package is Ignite UI for Angular. And so now that's going to install, and that goes to npm and asks a couple questions. This will be installed. Yes, please. And I think it asks one more question about CSS. Yep, we want to do that. Just say yes to everything when it pops up. It's updating everything about this package. So at this point, everything's ready to go. Now what we can do is we can open this in Visual Studio Code if we would like, but I'm going to do one more step because I want to show you one more thing before we do that. I'm going to go back to my help docs, and I'm going to click templates in the left-hand column. These are all of the templates that are part of the templates which you can install with the schematics. So we've installed the Ignite UI for Angular schematics, and basically these are files that allow you to inject a bunch of things in various aspects of your project. So it's not like I'm just going to add a file. This might be updating 10 files, but it knows where to update based on the schema of the whatever we happen to be adding. So if we're adding a tab, we do this command ng generate. What do I want to generate? Well, I want to generate a component from the Angular schematics of Ignite UI. Which component? A tab component, and it's going to be called new tabs. So to start, it's usually good just to do something like a grid. So I'm just going to copy this, and we're just going to create a new grid in this project. So let's do that. And I'm going to paste this. So ng, which is the Angular CLI, generate at Ignite UI, Angular schematics, C is component, what component grid, and we're going to call it new grid. So let's hit enter, and this is going to update our project. Now we're ready to rock and roll. Let's just do ng serve. Actually, no, first we're going to open up in Visual Studio Code. So we just do a code dot. So now this will open up in Visual Studio Code, and we'll do our npm install from here just so you can see what's going on. So here we go. This actually created a new component with the IGX grid. It has some local data and some other stuff in the code behind of this HTML page, has the CSS. There's really nothing it needs to do here, but the base Angular project is everything that you see on the left. The new grid is added from the Ignite UI Angular schematic. So now I have a grid in my application. It's basically that easy. And now this grid also has a paginator. There's one thing about this grid is we have auto generate columns equal true, which means that it's going to read the data, which is coming from local data here, and it's going to auto generate columns based on the schema of this data. So let's do a new terminal window, and let's do an ng serve -o, which will open it up. So now what ng serve is doing is it's basically compiling this application, and it is going to load it up. This for Angular, as the folks on the call know who are Angular developers, this is one of the bad things about Angular, is that it does take sort of a while to build the application. Most people have very little patience nowadays. So even the fact that it takes a minute and a half is a little like, oh, what am I doing? Web components are cool. It kind of just starts right up, but it's doing a bunch of stuff. So you can see here that it actually started our application right up. And now this is the default Angular page. What I want to do is I want to do /new grid because that's what I added. Now, because we didn't do any routing or anything, and this is all coming in the same route, our grid actually shows up here on the bottom. So you can see here, we've got a grid. It's got some nice features, and it just kind of looks good. So we're just going to do this. We're going to put this guy over to the left, and we're going to put this guy, or that was to the right. We're going to put this guy over here. So let's do a couple things. Let's go to app component.html. Everything right here is generated from this app component.html. So we're going to delete all of this boilerplate. And you can see we've just got the router outlet here. So in the routing, it's telling us to use the router outlet for whatever page that the route is pointing to. So now it's still going to point to index, but we are going to say new grid is what we're just going to leave up here on the screen. So what we can continue to do is add features and capabilities to this application. So if we go back to our command prompt here, it's still kind of like I'm in this folder, this application is running, I've got the screen over to the left. And what I want to do is maybe add another component here. So let's go back to here, which is our template screen. And let's add something else. Let's see. Why don't we add a chart? Let's add a financial chart. And we'll copy this guy here. And I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to paste it in. This is going to be adding a new financial chart. It's going to add this to our application like so. It's installing all the packages. You can see behind the scenes, it's compiling and it keeps failing because what is nice about this is it's watching all the files, and as files are changing, it's just going to update. So it's trying to compile as we're going, and then eventually it's going to say, yeah, I compiled okay. So it's still generating the bundles. And if we go back here, this was called, I think, new financial chart. So generating bundles, and we're going to go, oh, failed to compile. Let's see. Is an Angular component. What the heck? Let's close that out. What did this guy do? Let's do npm start. I don't know what the heck that meant. So we'll let this guy build again. But essentially what happened again is here I've got my financial chart. And the nice thing about the charts from Infragistics and even the grids is you have the tags like IGX-grid, IGX-financial chart, and it just binds to data and everything just sort of works. There's really almost no configuration if you don't want to do configuration. I'm going to show you a little bit of how you can do that configuration in 1 second. So now let's go here, new grid. Let's do financial chart, hit enter. And here we have our financial chart. So this just magically shows up and appears. I've got my zoom bar down here. I've got a bunch of things on my toolbar, which is kind of nice. I can do some different indicators like Bollinger Bands, price channel. We can do a couple trend lines. I'll leave the volume. Well, yeah, let's do line chart for volume indicator and do a couple other metrics here. But you can see this is a full featured financial chart, and you didn't have to write any code. All you need to do is bind your own data. And so doing remote data binding, that's going to be another webinar. I have a video on that, but today we're just going to be using the CLIs, and they're using local data. So this is one way to achieve this, is through using Angular schematics, basically with the ng generate Angular schematics. What template do you want to use? And then you go ahead and tell it the template and the name of the component. And you can see there's a bunch here. So you can inspect all of these and kind of play around with what you're doing. So now we're going to kill this, and we're going to look at the second way to actually build Ignite UI for Angular apps. So I'm going to do a CD like that. And what I want to do now is I'm going to do an npm install, and I'm going to do this globally, and I'm going to install the Ignite UI-CLI. So we have our own CLI, command line interpreter, that is using schematics, but it's sort of like a wizard. It's a wizard that you use at the command line, which is actually pretty cool. So I've installed it, and if you do the same thing right now, this all works. npm install Ignite UI CLI. Our prefix is IG. So Angular's is NG, ours is IG, and now I'm in this step-by-step mode. So it says enter a name for your project. Let's do webinar demo 11. And we have 4 options: Angular, jQuery, React, or web components. I'm going to do Angular. What type of Angular app? We have our wrappers for our jQuery product, so avoid the wrappers, just do Ignite UI for Angular, and then choose a project template. Actually, let me move this over a bit. I'm going to do a default side navigation template, which I'll click this, and if I go back here, you will see that there is a default side navigation template in this list somewhere. So all of this is related, right? So it's just giving you an easier way to do it. What theme do I want? I'm going to use the default theme. Now, what do I want to do here? Let's add a scenario. I want this scenario to be a FinTech grid, and I'm going to just call this FinTech 1. Now let's add a component. Let's do another grid. Now this is cool. I'm going to do a grid, and I'm going to do a custom grid. So let's name it. We're just going to call it custom grid 1. Now it says, what features do you want? So with the space bar, I can, in the down arrow, I can select what features I want in this grid. So I want all these features. And you're going to see how all this kind of comes together. Now I'm going to hit enter, add another component, maybe map. I don't ever know if I've done map. So let's do a map, and let's do a chart. Let's go to chart. Let's do a category chart, and let's call it category chart 1. And we're going to complete and run. So now it says, hey, do you have a subscription or not? I'm going to say yes. I have a subscription. Let's open it up on port 4550. And so now it's going to go through and install all of these packages. That's going to take a minute. Let's go back to the help docs, step-by-step guide for the Ignite UI CLI. Uh-oh, what happened here? That's weird. CD webinar demo 1.1. Maybe I shouldn't have tried to do that map when I said I've never done the map before. Oops. Everything is here. Let's go to the terminal. Let's do npm install. It's live demos here. And no matter what, how many times I did this, of course, I never did map. So let's do an npm start. Let's see what happens. All right, so I think there's a problem with the map. So we're not going to do that. Let's go back and let's do this again. And I'll just do like the grids and stuff. So I said I've never done a map, not a good idea. So webinar demo, let's do 1.2. And we'll do the same thing. Let's do Angular, Ignite UI for Angular, default side nav. We'll do the default theme. Let's go ahead and add our component. I do want to do the grid. So let's do the custom grid again, because I think that's kind of cool. Custom grid 1, and just adding the features that you want, real easy like so. And then I do want to add a scenario because I want to show you this FinTech grid, and this will just be called FinTech 1. And we'll complete and run. We'll skip that for now. We'll leave it at port 4200. I don't think anything is running there. No. And we'll do that. So let's make sure that this is closed. So now it's installing our packages. And yeah, so that error, I'm going to assume it was the map. I'll do it after, but that's probably what's going on. So now let's go back while this thing is installing, because it takes a minute. Step-by-step guide for the Ignite UI CLI. It's basically walking you through the same thing that I just did. You've got this wizard. It asks you a few questions. And essentially what this is doing is it's giving you applications that are ready to go for you to like kind of reverse engineer. You can change like the data sources. You can copy some code and paste it into your app if you're stuck on something. So it's just a way to really learn the application or learn the product without like digging into it too much. So first thing you should be doing is looking at the schematics, the templates that go with it, and then the CLI, and then you'll have a really well-rounded way of starting your kind of journey with using Ignite UI for Angular. So you can see this now is installing packages. Let's go to my dev folder, C:\dev. This was this webinar test. It's creating everything here. Let's right click. Let's open this up in Visual Studio Code, and we'll take a look at just a couple things here. What I want to show you, and this is why I did this FinTech grid, is because the FinTech grid does not do auto-generate columns equals true. It's actually creating a column definition for every field. So there's two ways to do this with the grid: auto-generate all the columns or do the columns yourself. And in this case, it's doing a few things. We've got column templates. There's some ng ifs. You're doing some loops, looking up data. So it's actually a really good example that kind of shows you everything that you can do with the grid. And you'll see when we run it that it kind of demonstrates, you know, basically all the grid features. I think the only grid feature that it's not showing is, I think, is column summaries, but you know, that's fine. And then of course, we also did the custom grid, and the custom grid here as well has a couple cool things in it. One thing is that it does have your columns, the column definitions, but it also has the grid toolbar. The grid toolbar is a toolbar. You can do some custom things with it, like group or pinning and hiding and things like that. But here's our application, compiled successfully. Now it popped up here. We told it to do the left navigation, so you get the left nav. Here's our custom grid with all those features that I was just kind of talking about. So we've got some pinned columns. We've got the pager. We can go ahead and hide a couple columns as well. This has a filter row, has some nice things. Sorting is going on. But let's take a look at this FinTech grid. So the FinTech grid, a little more full featured. Now this guy drives me crazy because it kind of goes beyond the bottom of the thing here. Something we just need to change in the sample. So I'm going to go back up here, and this just shows you how easy it is to change this stuff. I'm going to change the height, which is set to 90%. I'm going to change it to 75%. I'm going to save this. It recompiled. It's refreshing, and we'll see that, whoops, the grid, oh God, get back over here, now takes up less room. So here's our grid, a bunch of things happening here. You can see we have a light theme. I've got select all. I got different groups showing. I can collapse and expand all these groups. Let me flick over to the dark theme. What I want to highlight here is that the performance of this grid is just beautiful. So it's virtualized on a column and row basis. So you don't have to worry about the number of records that you're putting inside the grid. Every column has a Excel style filter, which allows you to do things like pin columns, sort, move right, left, do data type based filtering. So for example, this is numeric. So you get greater than, less than, etc. If I go to something like region, I'm going to have different text filters like contains, ends with, etc. So let's just grab a couple things here. You can see that the grid has less data. I can stop all these groups, get to a flat grid like so. I can do things like live streaming. So here I'll click live prices. And now you can see that the grid has streaming data popping into it. Let me hit stop there. Let's go ahead and put 10,000 records in this grid. And you can see that there's no difference in the performance of the grid. All the features still work beautifully. And if I want to do a little interactive grouping like so, I can do that. So let's do by settlement and contract. I've got 2 groups here. Let's do country as well. How's that sound? We'll put country right there. Now we get a few more groups. I'm going to enable the toolbar. So there's my toolbar. In the toolbar, we have an export to Excel option. So I'm going to export this grid to Excel. Remember, it's 10,000 rows and there's groups within this. This is nice about the Infragistics Angular. Whoops, let me move this over. All of our grids export to Excel, but they also export in the hierarchy that is displayed in the grid. It's not a CSV. So you get the exact same hierarchy for your users, which is super slick. So essentially, this grid kind of covers all the features that you would want in any line of business grid. And you can get it by just using the CLI. Now, at the same time, I said we're going to learn 3 things today. We're already over on the webinar. Stick around for 3 more minutes because I'm going to open up the app builder. And I know we went over the app builder in the last webinar if you were here, but I want to show this again. So I'm going to log in and we're going to, let's do this. And I'm going to say yes. So in a matter of seconds, I'm going to do all that work just with the WYSIWYG here. So I'm going to do a new app. I'll do a blank app. I'm going to pick a layout. I'm going to do just a full screen like so. I am going to do a Control E. I'm going to add a data grid like so. My grid is going to be 100% width and 100% height. And I have data already here. This is using an opened API from Northwind. I actually had that up here earlier. I think it is here. So this is up in the cloud. I'm using Azure SQL. And you can see I'm just getting some data back. That's categories. I'm going to change this to customers like so. Now I've got the customers grid. I want to add a few features here. So I'm just going to do cell editing, grouping, hiding, moving, pinning, resizing, summaries, selection, editing, row actions, not paging, maybe, okay, toolbar, column selection, advanced filtering. Now I can go down here and wherever there's a hyperlink, I can change things like I had paging here, page size 10. Let's do page size 250, like so. We can preview this guy. There's my grid. Like so, I've got all the capabilities and features. All the code is written. That's actually Blazor. Let's make this Angular. So now there's my Angular code. I can click and publish to GitHub. I'm going to say webinar demo 13. Like so, let's create our repository up in GitHub. And in a couple clicks, in a couple seconds, I've published this full application data bound to Azure SQL to GitHub. Now I can copy this, Git, right click, VS Code. Let's do Control-Shift-P. Let's do a Git clone. Let's clone this repo. There's a good place for my repository. Let's open this guy up like so. Terminal, new terminal, npm install. And then we'll do npm start. And same thing, everything that we just did, we're going to do with this application. So that's really how easy this is to use Ignite UI for Angular with all of these different capabilities. I'm going to go ahead and Control C this. We'll stop that guy from running so we don't have any conflict. But you can see this is installing all of the dependencies for our Angular app. It'll take a second here, and we'll close this guy out. And yeah, I don't see any questions. If you guys have any questions online, jump into the chat or the Q&A. Feel free to ask anything that you want about Angular or the controls here. Hopefully this is useful to you and it'll help you get started. Come on now. Usually it's a little bit slower when I'm doing screen shares with Zoom, just because it's tying up bandwidth. But yeah, this is the one thing about Angular. The dependency tree to do an Angular app is, I think it's like a gigabyte. And then let's just do npm start. And yeah, it's pretty crazy how, you know, when you delete an Angular project folder, it's like could be 800 megabytes, or for a 6 KB Angular application, which is a little bit nuts. But let's let this guy generate, because I want to show you this, because it's actually pretty cool what we just achieved with the app builder. So however you choose to do it is up to you. We do have excellent docs across the board. So here we go. This is my grid. Let's group by, or not contact, let's group by contact title. So I have some groupings. Let's pin country to the left. So now I've got country pinned to the left. Actually, there's no scrolling happening here, so let's make this thing smaller. You can see that because I gave it the 100 and 100, it's actually a responsive grid, so it fits perfectly in here. I've got my advanced filtering option. I can export this to Excel again. I can hide columns like so. And yeah, it's just that simple. Now back in the app builder, let's say you don't want this theme. I'll go to the theme here. You could make this the dark theme. I can publish this to GitHub. Again, it's actually going to do a pull request for me, and go here, go here. Now I'm at GitHub. I'll merge it myself, confirm the merge, and I'll delete the branch, and we're good to go. Now back here, it'll show that there is some updates here in my source control. There was some changes in package.json, and you can see that it did some stuff here. But at the end of the day, what's happening here is you have complete control over the application from the app builder side. What ends up in GitHub, I can have different branches. I can do different things. It doesn't really matter. But with all that, I built a full featured grid with a few clicks. You know, no matter what I did today, either using the app builder or any of the CLIs, all of this stuff happens very quickly, and it's very little work on your part. So with that, we're going to wrap it up. We're about 10 minutes over. I'm really sorry about that. We have a couple links I pasted in the chat where you can get more involved, get some of the links for the YouTube channels. And then again, I want to thank you for your time today. Let me bring up this last slide. And this is all we're going to say. I'm Jason. That was Luke. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you in a couple weeks. And I think in a couple weeks, we're going to talk about Blazor and App Builder. So have a good rest of the week and have a great weekend. Thank you. Bye-bye.